Sam here from Book of Vaslin. Today we're at Handpicked Wine in the Mornington Peninsula. We're going to talk to Peter Dillon about his new equipment to receive and sort grapes. We're here at Handpicked Wine with Peter Dillon, the chief winemaker, and Duncan Buchanan of Vinvicta and Book of Vaslin dealership in the Mornington Peninsula and for Victoria. So we're here to talk to Peter about his new equipment that he has put in place for this year, Vintage 2020, and to share his experience.
Yeah, so you've recently upgraded, Pete, you went to the E2 Evolution destemmer with an R-flow sorting table at the end of your front-end processing. What were you aiming to achieve by getting those pieces of equipment on board?
I would say for us it was really a very big shift in direction. We've got very much a focus on Pinot Noir for this site, particularly. Previously we had a very labour-intensive level of sorting, which was also built around a fairly basic and rudimentary destemming system, which was pretty rough and ready. So really it was a big shift in terms of direction and fine-tuning our sorting capacity.
And that sort of worked into your winemaking philosophy of trying to be less hands-on with just trying to let the fruit do the work and just being much more gentle with your fruit, is that correct?
Ultimately, yeah. I mean, we are always fine-tuning things in the vineyard. I suppose we saw the biggest changes that we could make as the opportunities to really ensure that purity of fruit in the winery.
Yeah, nice. And how did it end up? Did you get the results that you wanted out of those pieces of equipment?
Very much so. 2020 was probably a year with a lot of variability, from flowering right through to the finish.
Yes, it was troublesome as my own friend. I think those bits of kit do pay for themselves in the harder years.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, probably a great year to trial out the new unit and have it on site. From that point of view, I was thanking my lucky stars, and I think that just having the capacity to fine-tune that selection of the ideal fruit and berries right through that system made the big difference to me. Which equipment? We basically upgraded the whole receival area. So we had the hopper and vibrating table, which is I think the TRV. Yep. I can't remember which number. And that then went through into the Evolution destemmer, and that then went across the R-flow table. So from what was quite a rough Italian destemmer and hands-on manual sorting process, that was a huge change.
You also have the trio sorting table in there too, don't you? The rolling table.
Yes. That I think. I mean, I suppose in my mind it's almost part and parcel. I think we wouldn't want to do anything without it, having used it this year.
Yeah, definitely.
I think for what is effectively simple in terms of philosophy, it made a huge change to the whole process.
Now, as luck would have it, we have a glass of wine in our hands with it. That's the end product. What are we looking at here, and what was the uptick that you saw?
As a site based in Mornington Peninsula, we do a lot of Pinot, as I said, but for Handpicked we also have vineyards in Tassie. So this is actually one of the Pinots that we've brought across from our vineyard in the Tamar. Quite a small parcel from our Auburn Road site of some pommard fruit, and that is a very small block with a little bit of background pressure in terms of things like possums and wallabies. This year, quite unsettled weather through flowering. So we really saw really big ranges of berry sized, even within the bunch, and a whole range of little issues through from the little tiny aborted berries through to a bit of shrivel, etc.
And did that bring a difference in maturity within the bunch itself?
Yep, most definitely. And I think just having that capacity to fine tune as that was coming through that receival process and be able to really drill into exactly the berries that we did want to see coming through to the fermenter, and seeing the berries that did come through just being beautifully intact, pristine berries really made a huge difference.
And gentle through, I remember seeing some of the fruit coming through here, and the destemming and sorting was very gentle, very little juicing at the tail end. That was one thing that I thought was a real plus, which I think we'll probably see on some of the videos that'll go on with this.
Yes. Yeah.
With so many different Pinots from these unique sites, we really want them to be able to speak of the site that it comes from and the purity and pristine characteristics of that site and fruit to come through. So that's exactly what I see here. I think this, to me, this speaks of that particular site in the tamer, clarity, pure fruit. It's a good question. It probably depends a little on the season and some of the pressures and how condensed or not. But typically here we're very much focused on small batch winemaking. So a big day for us here might be 15 tonnes coming in. We would potentially be running it with 2 people, I would say, would be typical. Yeah. If we were stretched, one person, and it was probably up and running, one person would be able to look after it. But I think really with the focus on just ensuring everything is always at sort of optimal performance, we'd probably have 2.
Okay.
And that would compare to previous, we would have 6 people plus out there, because we would be having to do much more tipping, much more hand sorting, all those sorts of things. So much more labour intensive previously. And nowhere near the same result.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. That's the point I was going to make. You get that consistency, don't you? If you've got that front end processing all set up and running well, you have that consistency of sorting right the way through.
Yeah.
And that's a big plus, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look in the fermenter post processing this year, where it was like a giant bin of caviar. All the berries were intact, beautifully consistent, and exactly what we're looking for. So on that front, extremely happy. I think here we do not just Pinot from different sites, but also a number of different varieties.
Yeah.
So having the capacity to change the cage configuration within the evolution destemmer was extremely useful, and that's part of that nuancing or to find that perfect configuration to get the perfect result. I think that meant that we had, as an example, just as good a result with the Shiraz as we did with Pinot, and we'd be changing the cages and paddles on that, so that was definitely worthwhile. And I think probably just investing that time in that first week to really learn how to use the gear was probably critical as well.
Okay.
I'm sure if needs be, you could definitely run it yourself, but I think with that sort of an investment, we were keen to learn as much as we could in an inclusive way as possible. So Invicta were on board right through that process for the first week, and there, any other time we would need, because I think just there are so many little changes that you can make at so many different points in that operation that it was best to have some people familiar with all that on board to get the best out of it. So on that front, definitely worth doing.